It's impossible to try and drive a pickup truck as your everyday car without feeling just a tiny bit American. And while normally I love American things, that has become a bit more difficult of late, hasn't it? Let's face it, with a Trump in the White House, nobody else wants to be American. So maybe you can get around that a little bit by trying out this Ford Ranger Wildtrak. Yes, it's a Ford. Yes, it's a pickup. Yes, it has a slightly ridiculous name, so it's very American. It's actually built in South Africa, so there's that. Then there's the idea in and of itself of trying to use a pickup as your daily car. Now, it's certainly been tried by quite a few people. There are those who legitimately use these for business and work and hauling heavy loads, but there's also a few of us who kind of quite like the idea of having one of these things, this big, chunky, utilitarian lump of metal with a lusty 3.2 litre diesel engine and enough space out the back for, well, for an entire house pretty much. Does the reality live up to it though? Well, actually, in some ways it does. The Ranger is quite a pleasant thing to drive. Now, in certain circumstances, that is. Like right now, up here on a main road, on a motorway, where it's actually surprisingly refined. This 5-cylinder, 3.2 litre, 200 horsepower engine. Aside from when you're driving it at low speed or accelerating hard, it's actually pretty quiet. It's actually genuinely refined. Now, overall, the Ranger is not as refined, not as comfortable, not as smooth as the Volkswagen Amarok, which, for my money, remains at the absolute peak of the pickup world. But the Ranger's about on a par with the likes of the Toyota Hilux and the Nissan Navara, so it's pretty decent. It's also very good in here. Yeah, there's a lot of cheap, nasty plastic, stuff that's been chucked out from the Transit production line, perhaps. There's also a lot of good stuff. This Wildtrak spec model gets part leather seats, which are heated in the front, gets the good touchscreen, gets split zone climate control, gets all sorts of nice things which make daily life that bit more pleasant, that bit easier. I've got cruise control, I've got steering wheel stereo controls, I've got Bluetooth phone connection, I've got an iPod hookup, everything you need really. Now, it does start to fall apart a bit though when you get to price. You see, the whole idea of buying a pickup truck is that it's going to be cheaper than an equivalent posh family style SUV. But the Wildtrak is €45,000. Now, that does make it cheaper than the spec'd up versions of the Volkswagen Amarok, but it's not exactly what you'd call affordable. Yes, you do get a lot for your money. Yes, you get this cool contrasty orangey stitching and these nice seats and all the toys, but it's just stretching reality a bit thin, isn't it, to try and say that this is better value than a car-based SUV. €45,000 these days buys you an awful lot of 4x4. True, it won't necessarily buy you a car with the mixed capabilities of the Ranger. This thing has serious, proper off-roading prowess. We've got a low ratio gearbox option here. We've got good ramp over and brake over departure angles. This thing will tackle the mud in a way which you would frankly not believe. And yet it is still perfectly comfortable. It is still perfectly viable to drive it around town, although you'll find the steering a bit slow and long-winded when you're trying tight urban maneuvers. But again, as I say, up here on the main road, it's comfortable, it's decently refined, it's a bit thirsty. I mean, it's actually getting very close to its official fuel consumption figures. Ford says it'll do 33 miles to the gallon on average, and we're getting 28. So it's actually not unrealistic in that respect, but by anybody's standards, 28 mpg is a bit on the stiff side, isn't it? The thing is, I do quite like it, and I want to like it as well. There is a part of me that goes, yeah, pickup truck would be great to have as a family car. It's got all the ruggedness you want, but you don't care if you get it scratched or if it gets dented. You won't worry about putting messy things in the back of it because, well, the back of it is designed to take messy things. I can just see the usefulness, the utility of it, that U in SUV that most 4x4s and crossovers and SUVs don't actually do very well, the utility part. I do like that, but I just think at this price level, it's just a bit too rich for its own good. You can get cheaper Rangers, but then they're not as luxurious, they're not as comfortable, they're not as nicely appointed inside, so it does start to lose its own point at that stage. So I like it, and I kind of want to like it more than I objectively do. And yes, I would quite fancy having a pickup truck as my everyday car, but I think the price, I think the value effort needs to be stretched a bit further before it becomes a realistic prospect for very many of us.